This is a diverse community. So we'll be discussing to have an LLC type of community living here. And everybody know what that means. I don't have to go any further with that. Number 4, redirecting the water. FEMA designates this as a flood zone. I don't care how high you're gonna move up your property, vertically on your property, that water's gonna come gushing out onto 94. And even if you raise the property line, I'm an electrician, I'm pretty good with construction. Even if you raise that line, where's that water gonna be redirected to since you're already up above the ground? So it's gonna go towards the house on west of that property or east of that property? That doesn't help those neighbors. The question number 5. Question number 5 is, how can you even stand there, Mr. Engineer, and say, oh, we haven't gone over that question yet? You're halfway through the processing point. So you should really know any question that's being thrown at you. So you're not doing your homework, and we're trying to do our homework to stay ahead of the pace here that is really disgusting what's going on here. You're gonna put residential development on 94 right in the middle of town. Never mind trying to make a right, you'll never make a left. So what is the plan for going west on 94? There's probably no plan, because you can't have a plan for that. So there's no way that should be put there. Take it 10 seconds, you don't want to throw it. That was calm, too.
Sam Weinger. Can you spell your last name, please?
Weinger?
G.
Yeah, G. Quick question. So are there some variances being requested for this project? Is that something that will be answered?
Yes.
So there are variances, okay. I think I speak for, I'll say this first. So I drove down 6 hours, I was up with my wife in Canada, because I respect this process a lot. I respect the board immensely, and I hope everyone else does too, because you guys represent the town and everyone's interests. A village is a village, and it's meant to preserve a characteristic of the people there and what they want to see, how they want to live, right? So, first things first, who here works in the city or has had somebody in their family work in the city? A lot, right? So, a lot of people get to the city by using that Salisbury Mills Cornwall station. I was wondering if that was, considered at all, a bus stopping right on 94, stopping traffic, people trying to get to the train to get to the city on time. Right, that wasn't something I heard brought up at all. It's a very clear path right to the station, and there's a lot of traffic in town as it is, especially in rush hour. Second, I speak for thousands in this town when I say this. The fact this is even a possible project is a glitch, and I think everyone realizes that. The builders realize that. The engineers realize that. The board realizes that, but that is exactly why I'm going to say variances should not be granted in this case. It's going to completely change the characteristics of the village, and there's no going back at that point. Once you build a residential dwelling there, it's putting a cap right on the end of the property, right on the end of the village. And they say that there'll be consistent maintenance to keep up the appearance. I mean, that's very wishful thinking, especially for a 28 home dwelling, right? That's 28 times possibly 4, that could be 100 people in that building. And there's absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that it's going to completely change the landscape of the village. And I just say to the board, I know a lot of you are thinking this, and this is what you're considering, but realize what the people of the town want, and how much is it going to affect the village now and 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. I think it's time we dig our heels down and say that, that zone should not have apartment buildings popping up. There's plenty of other places in the village and in the town they could belong. Thank you.
I can't read the last name. David on Lincoln Drive.
David,
May I have your last name, please?
the
Dunn, to you and
Thank you.
Senior.
Thank you.
My name's David Dunn Senior, I've lived here since 1958. Same house on Lincoln Drive. I got a couple of questions. I believe our sewer is almost at max right now, am I correct?
No.
We're not in violation anymore?
Sewer treatment plant was expanded
I realize that.
and is now, there's significant available capacity.
Okay. How about the water situation? How's the well?
I would have to get for you the current available quantities.
Okay. Are these buildings gonna be facing on Route 94, or are they gonna, is that gonna be the back of the building? The buildings, are they gonna face 94, or is that the back of the building?
It's the side.
Because every building in this village, the front of the village faces the road.
Can I just get a show, how many more people do we have on the list? I wanna make sure everybody gets a chance to speak before we answer.
5 more on the list.
5 more? What I'd like to do is go through the 5 more people on the list, and then I'm gonna ask Mike to give a brief synopsis of how these buildings wound up configured the way they are, which will respond to Mr. Dunn. How's that?
Okay.
All right? You have another question?
Right, one more. You're gonna take the two lots and make it one, to put the two buildings on, right? Is that correct? Is that footprint now gonna be big enough to put a third building on?
The answer is no, and the one lot is a dedicated green area, which Mike covered earlier in the.
But that's also in the floodplain, so it doesn't make any
But
difference.
there's no construction back there, that is the
But there
second
could have been
lot.
any back here before anyway.
I know, but that is the second lot.
Because he's not giving us nothing.
Next question, please. Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Tom Domingo?
Hi, John, Tom Domenico, 7 Maple Court. Just a brief on the planning board. This is very embarrassing. It started with the village board, and you guys have created basically a situation where there's no comments, no responses, nothing. It's a gag order, and basically, at the end of the day, you really should be ashamed of yourselves. And think about really what you're doing up there, because you're not representing the people that are in this room.
Thank you.
And to say,
Anything else?
excuse me?
Do you have anything else?
Plenty.
So,
So,
keep going.
so to say that flooding and the only 2 or 3 items were the highlight of what the heck we've been talking about since June. So let me just ask this board a question. Have you seen the 9 pages, read that, and gave any kind of synopsis? Because I haven't received anything back on the 9 pages that were submitted back in June. And I don't think anybody has received anything except for some real dumb, stupid questions and responses as to say, reason we want to keep that house up is because the neighborhood looks like crap. Really. That's the answers from this table. It's out of control, guys. You know, I'm gonna forget about the lights because some of these things are not really sure where it's gonna go at the end of the day. But parking, you're breaking your own rule. It's in the middle of these 2 buildings. It should be behind the lot, right? Every RO zone, every house has the parking behind the building. This is gonna have the parking in between the building. Your parking spaces are ridiculously not compliant for what you're building. You can't have 2 spaces for a house and consider a little person, a quarter of a person running around without a car. So at the end of the day, the husband and wife are driving, the kid turns 17, 16, there's a 3rd car. You have 2 bedrooms. That whole thing needs to be looked at. And the configuration of the parking lot, again, is against your own code, and apparently no one's really paying attention. The water and sewer, yeah, we increased the sewer plant by 200,000 gallons, plenty of flushability. But the water, we again, during the summer months, we were in a drought. So what does that mean with additional apartments? And the flooding, so we go up another 1.5 feet, we raise it up another 6 feet, And we didn't really resolve the issue because now we're gonna be flooding our neighbors. And this guy's gonna be high and dry. And again, no comments, no response, nothing. So when will we, and go back to my question, has anybody read those 9 pages?
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico.
No, I didn't ask that, no. I
You're
asked the
finished. Your 3 minutes is
question,
up.
I
You're
asked the
done.
question.
You're done, you've already embarrassed
No, I'm not
yourself.
done, I got time, I got time.
Oh,
I
that
got
wasn't
time.
necessary. That wasn't necessary.
You know what's done, Bob?
Embarrass yourself.
Okay, everybody,
The
Tom
man's just
Falsetto,
speaking here.
please. Next person,
Yeah.
Tom Falsetto.
And answer his question now.
I'll be brief. Okay, so I'm glad you acknowledge it's a flood zone. So no matter how high you put a building, anything that impedes our fine emergency services from getting there is a hazard. You're putting people's lives at risk. There's no doubt about that, right? If you can't get there when there's a flood, I've lived here for 30 years and I've seen the flood. If the emergency services can't get there, you're putting people's lives at danger. That's a fact, that's not an opinion. As far as the traffic, putting an apartment complex like this, literally hundreds of foot away from emergency services, fire and police, that's not good, right? I mean, do you understand why, right? It's gonna impede their ability. It's not like we have 2 or 3 lanes on Route 94, so that's a concern of mine. The overall infrastructure, there was a water restriction, and you should know this. And I'm not a fireman, and if there's anyone, a water restriction to me means there's not enough water if there's a fire. Is that close to what the reason we have water restrictions?
The wells are low.
Right? So you're not gonna let me water my lawn, I'm an Italian, I like a green lawn, because people's lives are at stake. And they're right, and I didn't water my lawn. How could you even consider something like this when you're gonna put people's lives at stake? And I hope you agree with that. So 56, so you're gonna put approximately 75 some odd people there. We all have got behind buses when there's 1 or 2 houses and how frustrating that is. And we've seen people do stupid things when buses stop, right? You guys have seen what happens. People get frustrated and everyone has an emergency and a reason to get somewhere and people do stupid things. How long do you think a bus is gonna be there to pick up, all right, maybe not 56 kids, but 20 or 30? And you're right, they can't pull in, so.
They accounted for 16 children.
The idea that we would consider this, right, when a bus has to stop, I don't know, I'm not too crazy about that. And, you know, what?
I really want to answer you, after everybody.
Okay.
To speak. I'm going to make a short statement.
Kindly will. And I don't want to see you turn Washingtonville into a city. Putting cameras up to monitor things, that's the definition of a city. And
That's traffic.
regardless, right? I mean, I don't know, do we have cameras right now to monitor the traffic? You guys would probably know better than me. Do we have cameras in Washingtonville? Right, isn't that nice? So, okay, that's just my opinion, but the other things about infrastructure, and we're absolutely putting people's lives at stake, if you agree to this. That's my concern. If this was somewhere else, way back, I probably have a different opinion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Terry Falsetto, you're gonna pass him to.
I speak for. I'll pay for that later.
Yeah. Valerie Prunty.
No,
Maybe. Valerie Prunty?
Yes, that's me. Okay, haven't rehearsed anything, haven't been here in a while, have looked at a lot of paperwork on all of this, okay? I live over in Washingtonville, I actually flooded. You know what I would think if somebody raised something next to me, allowed something to be built above the flood zone so I could get more water? Are you kidding me? No respect for the neighbors at all. I wanna know what's gonna happen with the stormwater too. Not the same way Brotherhood empties it all into the Muda. Okay, it shouldn't go directly. There should be a retention pond, if anything, that holds it, a detention, not hold it for a little while. You gotta be kidding me. You're looking at a floodplain. There's no place for these kids to play either. And if you say there's a little park in the back, no, that's not legal, that is part of the floodway that would be there. You want these kids playing in that? No. Okay, so these kids are gonna have to go someplace else. Then there's kids walking to the school that are gonna have to go past that. Okay? There were enough kids hit over on 94 coming into the village that used to have to walk, and that's what they still do. Okay, they had to cross street, they had to walk across. You're gonna pull at least 56 cars, so out of the 56 cars, let's say 30 of them will leave when the kids are going to school. That's ridiculous. Why are you people not looking at this? Also, what about multiple dwelling units instead of the way it's done? Okay, office residential, multiple dwelling, there's 28 apartments, for God's sake. You gotta make sure there's all sorts of precautions taken. You're talking about 28 families. If anything happened to them, do you want that on your head?
Yeah.
So the last one, you'll have to forgive me, I cannot read it at all, 109 Cartwheel Court.
Oh, that was me, Thomas Murphy.
Thomas Murphy?
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask you, after all this discussion, I wanted to ask the engineer, like, he was talking about backfilling and stuff to raise up the berm or whatever. What are you filling it with?
Soil.
Oh, I don't know, right? Maybe some old curbs.
Clean fill.
You sure it's gonna be clean fill? Are they sure? Is he sure? He doesn't look like he's sure of much. You gotta check that out. And what about these guys? What kind of more stress are you gonna put on these guys? You have more people coming into town, more crap happening. What are we gonna have to hire, you know, we have a town police department, a village police department. We're gonna need 5 more of these guys. You know? We're talking about support on all this kind of stuff. Support. EMS. We have guys that are running all the time. How many fire guys are gonna be running out of that firehouse all the time? You know? Things like that. People gotta think about stuff like that. You know, you got 2 guys here, right? You're gonna need 5 more guys on a shift to handle. You wanna keep building? That's what's gonna happen. More ambulance, more fire, more police. You know what that does? Costs a lot of people a lot of money. And not that that's a bad thing. You know, these guys earn every dime. So the teachers, they have to support teachers, you have to support them, you have to support fire, you have to support police.
That's it for the sign-up sheet.
Just brief.
I just want to make a comment. I didn't get to sign. Mike Graziano,
Yep.
Mark Street. So the traffic guy here, when he mentioned that, maybe a month or 2 ago when he was giving his presentation, he talked about 2 things. Number one is he said you may not be taking a left turn out of that development, so it wouldn't impede traffic. He mentioned that the other day. And then also, the other thing he mentioned was the project would assume like smart lights, like upgrading the village traffic signal. So right now, they're not even doing a diamond with the crosswalk. They didn't want to, they didn't want to do it because the state's not asking for that. It's kind of changed a little bit from, and I understand it was early in his presentation, but we did talk about upgrading our traffic system in the village. The only other thing I want to mention that everybody's mentioned is water. 6,000 gallons a day, I mean, that's crazy. Everybody said, we've had these water restrictions in the summer. We can't afford to have that kind of usage in our village. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I would love to say, don't encourage us to violate the water restrictions. And I know I'm being snarky, but we respect them because we know what's at stake. And when you blanketly, if you add 1 or 2 more houses, okay.
Thank you very much. Do you want to sign on the list?
I'm not on the list, but tell me, Erica Snell, 37 Bull Road.
Go ahead.
The left-hand turn is concerning to me for personal reasons. Driving in Hackensack, I understand it's busy, but it was a 2-lane street. and there was no left, there was only a right-hand turn. They made a wrong turn, caused the car down the road to jump into the traffic, and I got hit head-on in the standstill. This road is a 2-lane, that's it. If that traffic gets so backed up, cars can't go anywhere if somebody makes a wrong turn. It blocks it all out. It's just too tight. It's really just too tight.
Emergency services can't
But
get
but
in.
forget, I understand emergency services, I understand emergency services, I'm just talking the everyday person just trying to get out or stuck in traffic, nowhere to go, because the light is right here, you gotta make a left here, you gotta make a right here. It's a whole new traffic pattern that is very tight, just very tight. That's it, it's a very tight little town, very tight little space, and I don't understand why you would wanna bring in so much. And it could go anywhere else, Washingtonville is very big, I mean, but why right there? Why right there? That's my only concern.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I don't need to ramble, just why right there?
I think, one more hand, will be the last public comment for this evening. Go ahead,
Stephen
sir.
Hammond. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a double yellow right there.
Can I just have your name and address? please?
Stephen Hammond, 39 Moffett.
Thank you.
That's a double yellow there. So these guys make a lot of tickets if they're gonna pay them. But you can't make a left out of there, it's a double yellow. So they're gonna have to do what he said, they're gonna make a right or a left.
3 lefts and a right.
Are you finished, sir? Done? All right, thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments, and thank you very much. I just want to say a couple of words briefly, not so much about the project, but about the board. Everybody that sits up here is a volunteer. We're not paid. We donate our time for training, etc. The responsibility of the board is not what you may think that it is not. We don't get to just say no arbitrarily. We're here to help enforce the codes that the village has. The reason this project can be brought before this board is because this is where our codes say can go there. So this isn't like we just get to arbitrarily say no, we don't like it, it doesn't fit. That's not within our venue, we can't do that. Okay, we have to go by what the village codes say. Now, right now, there is a moratorium that we're very happy we have, but it doesn't affect this project or any other projects before this board or any other. So when people in the audience sit here and berate us or think we don't care or things like that, it kind of hurts a little bit because we do care. But whether we want the project or don't want the project, it doesn't matter. We have to enforce the code. We all took an oath to do that.
Please do that. That's what we're asking.
Now, I was going to give Mike the opportunity to share a few things, to just clear up a few things on how the parking got the way it is, how the buildings got to face that. Do you still wish to do that?
I have no problem with it, brief overview.
Go ahead, Mike.
This question has come up at, I think, almost every public hearing we've had. I'll try to do my best to address it one last time. And the board has this information. I think it's even posted in the drop boxes that we provided. Our first iterations for the project were with buildings that were parallel to Route 94. We were enforcing what we thought the code was. We had several meetings with the village, and we looked at the alternative of turning the buildings perpendicular to the road. At first, I personally wasn't necessarily in agreement with it, but when I did look at it, I think it does provide a better visual impact for the project because you don't have one big, long, tall building that just takes up the entire length of the front of the property along 94. So we turned the buildings perpendicular to the road to allow insight into the facility, into the actual site, to look at the interior architecture, to look at the interior landscaping, and to look at something that would look a little bit more like a road that goes into a development as opposed to a big, tall, long wall that you can't see anything that's going on behind it.
Mike, excuse me, do you have one of those like virtual looks at what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I have it actually right here, and we've submitted it many times.
Oh, okay.
And so we really carefully thought this out with the village to determine what was truly the better way to go. And after renderings and layouts and a lot of different visual impacts, and actually, I'm not sure that any one of the board members were here at that time when we started that, because we didn't actually have a planning board at that time. But having said that, that was the purpose for what you see now in the design, and I actually am in wholehearted agreement. I think it was actually the right choice for changing the overall design of the site.
So, Mike, while I can appreciate that, I don't, maybe you can help me, I don't recall another.
Excuse me, real quick, I can't open the discussion, what I can do is let's finish the meeting,
Okay.
and then if somebody wants to answer some questions or chat, we'll see what happens. Right now, we just have to close the public comment portion of it. We are not closing the public hearing. Yeah, we do need a motion to close the public speaking part of the hearing. Aye. The next village planning board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the village hall, unless otherwise noticed. Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, we are adjourned.